On a freezing, cold, wet, stormy night on the Devil's Slide in California, I met an old lady called Mary Lou Williams, a slightly crazy lady. But this lady, she changed my life. Alex Gruberman, E for Electric. I've been watching that channel for a while now. I've got a lot of respect for Alex. Alex, let's do that interview you talked about. Hit me up. We'll organise the interview. Now, Alex has just informed his viewers that he is leaving California and most likely leaving the United States. And he says it's because California is infected with the virus. Now, I don't know if that is true or false. I don't actually live there, but I have been through California, and I rode my bike around the world for a year through 26 different countries. I wrote about it on my blog. I'll put a link to my blog in the description below. If you want to check that out, you can. And I want to share with you my experience. Now, I did this on the channel quite a while ago, but at the time, I don't think I had many subscribers. The channel was pretty new. And I think everyone has a different experience. It sounds to me like Alex maybe is looking for a girlfriend. Maybe not, but that's what it sounded to me like. And he hasn't met the right girl yet. And maybe he was somewhere else, and that's very possible. So my experience isn't coming from that perception at all. I was actually riding a bike around the world with my wife at the time. Now, I was the scruffiest, bummiest looking guy. I think I was anyway, because, realistically, when you're a cycle tourist, you rarely wash. That's the truth. But one of the great things about being in the US compared to many other countries that I was in was I didn't have to try and find the sea or a river to wash myself in, or someone's tap, or, book a hotel once a week, have my once a week shower, or pour a bottle of water over myself, or my wife pour a bottle of water over each other. That's what we'd do at the end of the day. We'd sometimes try and find rivers and hope that they were clean enough to go in. In the US, in California in particular, this was the best state in the world, period, for camping. There is not even a close second place. $5 a night, you could camp there, right? And get electricity to power your phones, to power whatever you had. And these campsites were deluxe. I'm talking $5 a night for a deluxe campsite. My goodness, as a cycle tourist, this was heaven on earth. Now, here in Australia, we have this road, here in Melbourne, here in Victoria, we have this road we call the Great Ocean Road. Now, people say, the Great Ocean Road, you've got to go down and see that. If you live in any other part of Australia, you should go and see the Great Ocean Road. But when I got to Highway 1, and I rode down the coast from Portland down to Baja, I realised that the Great Ocean Road here in Melbourne, in Victoria, really wasn't that great. Sorry, guys, but it wasn't. Highway 1 absolutely kills it. And for one big reason, aside from the views, which is spectacular, it has a bicycle lane the entire way. We're talking, thousands of kilometres. Okay, maybe not thousands of kilometres, but more than 1,000 miles. It has a dedicated bicycle lane. And we were almost never hassled by drivers for, weeks and weeks of riding. In Australia, we get off the aeroplane, we get hassled within 5 freaking minutes riding home. And I'm talking repeatedly. So, my experience of the United States, it was very different to Alex's. In fact, in much of Europe, people really never talked to us. They kind of ignored us or looked at us like we were some kind of ruffians. And no, that's the truth. People really basically ignored us in most parts of the world. In Asia, people didn't really talk to us. They stared at us like we were freaks or something. That's the truth. They did. In America, in California in particular, something very different happened. Our experience was very different. And to be honest, even thinking about it, does make me a little bit emotional, because I remember I had been sick for months. I'd had parasites in my body and I'd lost about 20 kilos. And this came from Asia. I carried this around with me and I just couldn't get rid of it. It was like, it didn't matter what anti-parasitic drugs I took, it just wouldn't get rid of it. And I just felt weak all the time. And we were stuck on this place not too far from San Francisco. I think it was about 200 kilometers away from San Francisco, 200 kilometers north. And it was a highway, it was called the Devil's Highway or the Devil's Elbow, or the Devil's something or other like that. And it started to pour with rain. And we had very little clothing with us because we were only prepared for summer. It was summer at the time. We were freezing cold, literally freezing cold. I was weak, I was tired. And a lady saw us standing on the side of the road. And she said that she'd seen us earlier. She was in the wrong car. She drove home, got her minivan, drove back to find us, and said, the weather's going to be like this for 4 days. Get inside. You can stay at my house. This happened to us a few times in California. So Alex, not everyone in California is like that, my friend. You just have to meet the right people. Sometimes you've got to get out of your office. It takes more effort. It takes effort to approach a girl. It does. It's hard. It's hard to walk up to a girl and say, you know what? I like you. I think you look nice. Let's go and have a meal. Let's go do something. It's hard to do that, to be rejected, right? Things in life are often very hard. And sometimes we can get given an impression, like Alex seemed to believe that girls or women don't see him as a high value man. But I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's true. Just because they don't tell you that doesn't mean that isn't the case. Now, just because I felt like in many places around the world, people looked down on me. They thought I was like a homeless person. I wasn't. I was riding my bike around the world. But some people looked at me in that way, particularly in Europe. But I felt like in America, and this is the truth, and I've told people this many times that know me, we were met by so many more friendly people, and I would say more than every other country put together. Now, the truth is, many people from many countries watch this channel. So if I offend you, I'm sorry, but I'm telling you the facts here. In America, people were friendlier to us than every other country put together. That's just the facts. So, Alex, I hope you find the right place for yourself. Being a digital nomad, I think an awesome thing to be able to be. That is a great position to be in, where you have a lot of subscribers and people who love watching your channel. They really respect what you have to say, and that is an amazing thing. And I often look back and think about my experience for 1 year when I rode my bike around the world, when I was probably a pretty stinky, homeless looking person. And people in California, for some reason, embraced me. So thank you. Just want to say that. Just want to let you know that every country has people that are good and bad and different and strange, and there isn't any perfect place. That's the truth. Our ATM cards still wouldn't work. The Bank of America wouldn't give me cash over the counter, and GE Money in Australia, they just hung up on me 5 times. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. in Melbourne. I want to speak to someone. I have no money. I was in a foul mood. I had enjoyed the comforts of the motel, a warm shower, being clean for once, and didn't want to leave. We were so close to San Francisco International Airport. Maybe we could just ride there. We had to use our NAB credit card to withdraw money, which we hate doing because it costs an absolute fortune in fees. But at least we could afford to buy some lunch. The friendly man running the motel told us that the scattered showers would clear by midday. We didn't worry about checking the forecast ourselves. If we had, we probably would have stayed where we were. We had no idea what was about to hit us. It was uphill to get out of Daly City. Despite following all the clearly marked bike route signs, we had cars yelling at us to get off the road. It was too dangerous, they said. The headwind gradually built up, and I thought I felt some drops of rain. But back on the coast, we couldn't help smiling to each other as we watched groups of surfers, walkers, and cyclists enjoying the beautiful coastline. We lingered, perhaps a little too long, because as we left the town of Pacifica and climbed a steep, narrow hill, the rain suddenly felt heavier. We'd ridden steep, narrow sections of Highway 1 before, but this time, the shoulder was virtually non-existent, and there were lots more cars, and the cars were scaring us. We hadn't felt so much at risk since the roads of Indonesia. Through all this, the rain fell harder and harder and harder. At the top of the hill, we debated turning around and finding the first train or bus or plane out of this area. But being tough, or trying to be, we kept going. Bad move. We turned a bend and started down the mountain, down the side along the water. Gusts of wind immediately hit us, and we struggled to keep on the road and stop ourselves from going down below, from falling down below into the ocean. The barrier protecting us from the cliffs was low, and the gale felt awfully close to carrying us over the edge. Plus, the pouring rain felt like small daggers slicing our faces, and the grit flying off our tyres was blinding us. We stopped every time there was space to do so. We leant our bikes against the low barriers and huddled between them, trying to protect ourselves from the rain. It was hard to get going in the wind and the rain. We've ridden in the wind many, many times during the past 7 months, but this time it was impossible. We were stuck on a narrow road shoulder on one of the steepest, busiest roads we've ever ridden. The wind dropped for a few minutes and we were off again. But being blinded by the grit and the rain and troubled by the cars flying past us just inches away, we were scared and cold and freezing and started to shiver. We took a break behind a truck that had pulled over. The guy offered to take us down in the bed behind, but it was full of dirt. Not a good option for wet bikes and cyclists. He told us the name of this mountain road was called the Devil's Slide. Last year, the wind was so strong, a 65-year-old woman was blown across to the other side of the road. Me, that must have left her shaken. His matter-of-fact response: she died in a head-on collision. Soon after he left, we pulled over under some trees. We sat there for hours in the cold, freezing rain, soaking wet, waiting, hoping the wind and the rain would die down enough to let us get down the mountain to the town below. We had all our rain gear on, but we were soaked right through now. After huddling under the trees for a couple of hours, we succumbed to the shivering and decided to get out there, even though the sky hadn't cleared. At least the wind had relaxed enough, a little bit, for us to be less fearful. This had been one of the worst riding experiences. Neither of us would voice it, but we were both thinking of going home. If one of us had dared to suggest it, I'm not sure if the other one would have had the strength to say no. Just as the road flattened, a lady in a van motioned for us to pull over. "Got somewhere to stay tonight?" "No." "Yes, you do." And with that, both our bikes and all our dripping bags and 2 soggy cyclists were somehow crammed into the minivan. Mary Lou Williams was on her way to San Francisco to take her disabled son to a rodeo show. But they detoured back home, about 20 minutes each way, just to settle us in. Mary Lou even arranged for her tenant on the property to bring us some food, as she wasn't going to be there. We showered, put on some dry clothes, ate that delicious meal, and I fell fast asleep in bed almost immediately. Simple things like this we never expected today, when we thought we'd be stuck and have to camp on the Devil's Slide because we couldn't get out. And it was all thanks to the kindness of a woman in California who pulled over during a storm, even though she was taking her disabled son on an outing. Maybe we'll keep heading south after all.